We met because Jason was in a band before this band, and he had made a record and needed some people to tour with to play the record. And he heard about me through a friend of mine and contacted me through MySpace. And I jumped at the chance to go on tour, and that's how we met initially.
We practiced for about a month and then went straight on to a month-and-a-half tour, and we started dating on the second night of tour.
The Hundred in the Hands is the name of an American battle. It was fought between the Native Americans and colonial settler Americans. It was a victory for the Native Americans, which makes it distinctive in history. And Crazy Horse fought in the battle as well. So it was a triumph for the eventual losers.
It does suit us well, but we just added a drummer live, so we have a live touring member now. We never meant to be a duo, though. We always thought we would have a third person. We just didn't find that person. It'd be kind of hard to throw a permanent member.
Yeah, I think at this point it would be hard to include another person as a full member of the band, but we've always talked about expanding the live show beyond just the two of us. So the drummer is the beginning of that, and hopefully we'll be able to add one or two more other people eventually.
Usually, well, they're louder, they're heavier. It takes us a while because we write and record at the same time, so it's not like we finish the record and then we go, oh, we can play 10 new songs. It's a process of we have to figure out how you do a lot of things that you can really only do in the computer, in the physical world. Outside of that, they're impossible. They just don't exist. So it's like relearning the songs and then learning a whole new way of trying to make the sounds. So it ends up being quite different.
I mean, yeah, of course it's different. It's loud. It's a combination of a lot of loud, unwieldy sounds, and then these kind of softer, more delicate things. And so getting those to balance properly is always the struggle. And sometimes it ends up being a little more energetic and chaotic on live than in the recordings, but we like that.
Yeah, well, the first record we were still learning how to write together, and how that worked was that we would pull from all the records that we already loved, and we were also really excited by just pop in general, and so we were constantly trying to push to like a more clean thing. We ended up actually like producing on our own everything maybe 75% of the way, and then at that point we thought of the producers who we thought went well with each song and took it the rest of the way. And this time we just felt like we would just stay at that 75% and push it the rest of the way on our own.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted full creative control, which is a blessing and a curse, I guess. But it was really fun, but it was definitely a challenge taking on things like mixing, because we're lowly musicians. We're not engineers.
But it was also just actually being excited by the whole process, and our heart and the head. And this time around was more. We wanted to make a record that felt like a whole, and so just having the time to just sit in the studio and develop it all on your own is different. Yeah, we started off, and a couple of the songs we wrote were a lot. They were dark. They were about some heavy things. Empty Stations was about partly about Trish from Broadcast passed away, and Gerard from TV on the Radio. And Gerard and I used to busk in the same subway stations. So right after he had passed away, I had written this thing on the website where I just talked about how it used to be when I would go down the steps and he would be playing and I would hear his guitar coming up, and I was imagining if the reverberation was still going in the tunnel, it's like you could tap into that, as well as the idea that in between radio stations you could tap into the beyond, get messages. And there were some dark things going on between us at the time, so it was things that we didn't know how to talk about yet, and I think that's why we were writing about this other stuff. Once we learned how to talk about it, things really opened up and the record really took off. And the first thing to come out was Lead in the Light, which is sort of coming out into the sunshine at the end of a long night. So getting from empty stations to that point, that was sort of the theme of the record. It's like a long night, back to the one you love, through all the different tunnels and empty city streets.
The artwork was done. The pictures were done by our artist friend Jesse Clabo, who is a Brooklyn-based artist, and he has a very process-focused method, and this was a series of pieces that were very rigorous in their process. Jason?
So he took film of us and then he made stills and overlapped them and then he printed them out and then you could scan them, crumple them, drag them on the scanner back and forth. And it was just, we went to him because we liked his art in general, and when he just showed us a bunch of work that he'd been working on, and that style seemed like it looked like the way the record was made. It had a similar kind of like, some things are in focus, other things are crumpled and a little gnarly in the whole thing. So it just tied together, and then we went and took his finished images to this guy, Till Weidek, in Berlin, and he made all the typography, which had a similar kind of like flipping around, which felt kind of similar to it.
You know, we were just talking about the concepts that were important to us with making the record, and then allowed them to have the freedom to explore those ideas from their perspective as artists. I think it worked really well. We're really happy with how it turned out.
I think it's something that's just kind of natural to what we like anyway. But yeah, the first record, it was more focused on individual songs as like, this is a little pop universe, and so pulled from the records and references that go along with that, and it's fully contained. And this time we wanted to make a record that stretched the whole thing, and it was dealing with this darker idea, and so we just kind of went into that.
You know, and we made a more pop record last time, as he's saying. You know, we were worried about. We wanted to push in a different direction, but we're worried about making it too different from the last record. But our record label has really pushed us to explore different territory with this record, and that was really freeing for us. Because I think both of us come from a less pop place than how the last record turned out, even though we're really proud of it. It's been fun for us to get a little more experimental with this one.
In that sense, the pop record was the more experimental one. Because we were trying things we'd never tried before. This was kind of going back to some familiar things and then learning new stuff. Actually, it's a lot of the sounds that sound like synths are still guitars. Like Red Night, the song, and Stay the Night have almost no synths in them. It's all slowed down, warped, messed with guitars. So it's more like the guitar just became much more process-oriented. But it's similar to the vocals. It's like the vocals, you hear things that clearly are vocals, and then there's other layers that are made from the voice as well that are equally abstracted.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of manipulation going on with all of the sounds. So, and that's a big part of the process for us making this record. And I think that we liked that you weren't sure where that sound was coming from or what was making it. And that happens a lot with the guitars. We can't write on tour. We've tried. Some people are great at it, but we need to stop playing shows and then go off on our own first, and we write and we.
She stays home and I go to the studio for like the first month, and we each sketch on our own. End up with like a bag of lyrics and a bag of chords, and then we start writing and recording at the same time. So it's just about like, I think these lyrics will work on that, and then she'll. The first record, I actually wrote some vocal melodies when I wrote lyrics, but on this one, I just wrote lyrics, and then Eleanor figured out vocal melodies.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like patchwork, like a verse from her song and a verse from my song.
Or a line and a line, yes.
Yeah, it
It's
just slowly comes together.
You make a bunch of things and then mash them all together.
We tried to come from somewhere else. We tried to move to Paris. Didn't work.
I mean, I don't think that we're not like proud of being a New York band or something. I think we both love New York City, and there are a lot of great artists who come out of New York. But it's also it's flooded there now with musicians. There are just so many bands and so many musicians, and sometimes
it doesn't feel like a unique or a special thing. It just feels like that people in America who have bands, depending on how close to the coast they are, they either move to LA or New York, but mostly they move to New York. So our studio's in a building that has 25 other bands who all put out records and all tour, and that's just one. And then a block away there's another studio just like that, and the guitar shop is all touring bands that shop there. It's like a company store. So, I mean, it's special in the sense that because of all that, there's a lot of creative competition that's healthy. You're always being reminded that you're not as good as you think you are. You should try a lot harder.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good energy, certainly. But, it's just home.